Yep, you're on.
Okay, we'll get underway and welcome everybody to the December meeting of Council. A warm welcome to members of our management team, the full complement present tonight, along with Team Leader Finance, Andrew Cock, fresh back from a period of leave. Andrew, welcome. Likewise, Sarah and Jason as usual. And welcome to Mr. Redgrave in the public gallery. And of course, those people online joining us by Teams or whatever the prescribed method is. I should inform you all that the meeting will be recorded in keeping with standard procedures, and the recording of that meeting will be loaded onto Council's website tomorrow, I would suggest, or as soon as possible. General Manager has provided a certificate of qualified advice as is prescribed in the Act, and we'll now work through the details contained within the open session agenda, starting with the apologies and leave of absence. We have a request for an apology for Councillor Porter, Councillor Fiddler and Deputy Mayor Mead. Is there a mover and a seconder to grant an apology? Councillor Simms, thank you, and Councillor Wicks. No need for discussion, I'd suggest. No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. And those against? Motion is carried and the apologies granted. Item 2 is where I, as Chair, am required to ensure that anyone who has a conflict of interest or a pecuniary interest in any matter that's on the agenda tonight has declared that interest and has provided the appropriate notification to the General Manager. And I assume you've each done that, should that be the case. Item 3.1 is the confirmation of minutes from the ordinary meeting held on the 25th of November 2024. The recommendation is straightforward. We have a mover and seconder in keeping with that recommendation, please. Okay. Councillor Wicks again, thank you. And Councillor, sorry?
Simms.
Councillor Simms. Oh, I've done it again, haven't I?
Thank you.
There's something about this seat. Councillor Simms, my apologies, and Councillor Wicks likewise. Councillor Simms as mover of the motion. Is there a seconder, please? I've got 3 hands. Councillor Martin, thank you. Now I'm really going red in the face.
I believe to be a true and correct record.
Thank you, Councillor Simms. And seconder, likewise. Any concerns in relation to the accuracy of those minutes, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Item 7 is the response to questions raised at a prior council ordinary meeting. There was a question from Mr. Tom Kingston at our last meeting. That question and response are provided for councillors' information. Recommendation is there. We have a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Wicks. And seconded, Councillor Metzger. Thank you. There's been no debate on the question or answer, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 8 is questions on those from the public, whereby a member of the public has advised the General Manager with at least 7 days' notice that they propose a question. We have questions from James Redgrave and proposed responses with a recommendation to reflect that. Is there a mover and seconder, please, for that motion? Councillor Martin, thank you. And Councillor Wicks, thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That motion is carried as well. Thank you. Item 9 is public participation, questions without notice from the public, whereby members of the public can ask questions related to council activities, but in doing so they agree to abide by the terms of our related policy. I'll ask you, is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to address council? Please step forward, name and the matter on which you wish to address council, if you would, please.
James Redgrave, in regards to my questions put without notice today, or Saturday actually, to council on the old Portsville landfill site. Question 1. I referred to your extract in the minutes for tonight from last meeting, release of report material to the public in regards to the landfill gas risk assessment report. Why is a restricted report being released when the issue is of significant public interest and concern right now. And should
Answer that or take the second question as well.
second question. In July last year, Council excavated test pits on Jockrow land adjacent, and I mean right on the boundary line, to the old tip site and in the waterways that run from the old tip site where known buried substances are. The gas levels have been peaking since. Does Council see a direct link to their excavation sites for the capping material and the gas levels peaking in Club Drive in the last month's landfill gas risk assessment report?
Thank you for the questions. The responses for the record are as follows. In relation to the release of the report, which was received in closed session, the response is that the scope of the report is site-specific and as such contains confidential property details which are not relevant or appropriate to share with the public. Second question relates to the suggested increase in gas levels since excavation. Response to the question is, it was a closed question, but the response is no, as the gas levels are not believed to have changed due to any excavation. Those responses and questions will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, councillors, is item 11 and 11.1 actually, Building Department report for November 2024, coming out of the Office of the Manager of Development and Regulatory Services, Jan Phoebe. And it is the Building Department report for November 2024 with the associated information and drafts. Whether a mover and seconder that report be received, please.
Happy to move.
Councillor Simms, thank you, and Councillor Wicks. Councillor Simms, any comment?
A good monthly report for 30 applications. That's growing and growing.
Councillor Wicks, any comment?
No. No comments on this one.
Any questions from councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Likewise, at 11.2, we have the Planning and Development Application Status Report for November 2024, with a recommendation similarly that report be received. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Metzger, thank you. And Councillor Brown. Councillor Metzger.
Nothing really. It's exciting to see there's going to be an addition to Shimura Tavern. Excited to see what that looks like. And good to see we're having lots of units being built in Latrobe too. Follows our the report we had done on, you know, what our community is going to be looking for as housing goes. That's good.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, any further comments to add? All right, around the table. All good? The motion then, all those in favour? Motion again, all those against, I should say. Motion is carried, thank you. Next item on the agenda is at 13.1 and comes from the Corporate and Business Services Department. Report author is Team Leader of Finance, Andrew Cough, who's with us tonight. And we have a recommendation that the finance report be received. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Simms, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Metzger, happy. Councillor Simms.
I'd like to pass over to Andrew.
Team Leader of Finance, Andrew, are you happy to speak to the report?
Yeah, I guess I take it mainly as read, but I guess the highlights in terms of variances, there's expense side, there's variance in materials and contracts. A significant portion of that relates to disaster recovery costs relating to the weather event in September. Part of that extra cost will be reimbursed from the state and federal government. There is an amount of that that council will need to contribute towards and will affect the final budget position at the end of the year. But a number of those other variances are either identified as timing variances or have been dealt with in the budget forecast report, which follows this.
Just next. Okay,
The questions.
I'm sure Andrew's happy to take any questions from the floor. Councillors? Extensive report, detailed as usual, thank you. There's no questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. Next, as the team of the finance suggested, is the 13.2, the budget, sorry, 2024-25 budget forecasts. If I'm not mistaken. And again, quite a report, quite detailed, and a recommendation that the report by the team leader finance concerning 2024-25 budget forecast be received, and that council endorse the reallocation of budget. Yeah, okay, that's the recommendations. Move and second. Thank you, Councillor Martin, and seconded Councillor Brown. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, and I'd like to hand over to Andrew just to talk us through that reallocation, please.
Yeah, so attached to the reports, an income statement which shows the for each of the major line items in the income statement. It shows the original budget, the new forecast, and highlights the change at the right hand side. Some of the more significant changes. So basically, what we've looked at it's a sort of high level desktop look at the results to date and the information that's underlined since the budget was adopted. Some of the, as I said, more significant items, forecast increase in interest revenue of 190,000, and that's mainly due to a combination, maybe conservative investment on interest rates, but also cash balances have remained higher for longer than what was originally forecast at the time the budget was adopted. Rates are forecast to be slightly higher than originally budgeted. I think it's partially due to higher supplementary rates, so higher amount of properties have had improvements, but also I think a slight difference between the originally budgeted waste management charge and then that was adopted on a budget. On the expense, or the other major one on the revenue side is $2.3 million grant for the Smith and Others Bridge. So that doesn't affect the underlying result, but is additional income amount that's offset by offsetting the underlying results calculation. It's only a capital project. In terms of expenditure variations, the main one is a 233,000 increase in materials and contracts, including the major items, including that the disaster recovery costs were also already mentioned, and also those amounts highlighted in the written report that's included in the agenda, which is those consultant amounts mainly for those projects that are listed, the staff survey, the other ones, the
values and behaviours and
the
economic
development. So they're the main highlights of the forecast adjustments.
Thanks, Andrew.
And I'd probably just also state, again, this is more for transparency purposes than anything else, because we've got capacity within the budget to deliver these. It's more about using some of the areas that are under budget to be able to take up what has largely been going to market and finding out that we have less than needed to deliver these key initiatives through our annual plan. So,
Can I just ask a couple of additional questions? Is that all right? Just
Please do.
ask some questions around the rates collection report. I know that relates to the previous report. However, there's quite a bit of difference in the arrears from this time last year to now. I just want to understand that a bit more. Is that the total amount owing for the remainder of the financial year, or is that what is currently in arrears today?
It's a total amount owing for the remainder. So it's the final two instalments.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it is probably slightly up on, and I think it's a trend probably across other councils. It certainly is the case in Shedford as well, that the collections are a bit slower this year than what they have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not the amounts that are currently due. It's just when the rates get raised at the start of the year, the whole lot gets recorded as receivable, and as each instalment comes in, we reduce the amount of chance. That's the
So the amounts that are currently due or overdue from past financial, how do we sit with that, and what strategies do we have to bring those to fruition? Is it, well, people are doing it tough, and I get that. I just want to understand how tough people are doing it and how we're going to, do something about it.
Yeah, generally we reach out. So
Well,
Ask the General Manager to respond on.
yeah, well, I just want to
say.
add, so I think the amount of money is higher, so I think 3.4, but as a percentage, it's actually better than it was last year.
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, the dollars are obviously more because we are collecting more.
Yeah.
But largely it was, well, we're 30.5% outstanding at this time last year, and we're 26.8. So I think there's still people are still paying on time and bringing to account, unless I'm mistaken in an arrears position.
I can see, that's quite clear, but I just wanted to understand what the actual hardcore arrears are like.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my misinterpretation.
No, I probably didn't ask the question clearly enough, but
And I guess we also reflect, and I know you're well aware of it, Councillor Martin, we have that hardship policy in place for those people who are struggling to pay their rates. If that's the case, they can approach council with regards to their personal circumstances and negotiate payment plans and the like. So there are options there, but yeah, we are very much aware of the current cost of living crisis.
yeah,
And it is interesting though to see those percentages particularly not being reflective of that. To think that a greater percentage of people have paid their rates now than at the same time last year, which I think flies in the face of the cost of living crisis, but I'm not sure what I read into that.
people are used to being in a tough spot and the foregoing other things, or putting life on their credit card, and then worry about that after the new year. But I just wanted to understand what the hardcore debt looked like around rates and what the arrears, the hardcore arrears actually look like.
Okay. And by hardcore, you mean
How many are
the overdue?
overdue, like 12 months overdue?
Yeah,
6
yeah.
months overdue.
I get it. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Anything further to add, either of you? Something you'd like to add further in writing, we can follow up.
If you could come back to me, just
Take on notice.
I think we'd take it on notice. Unless it's
Happy to
something,
do that.
Andrew, that you've had a reference.
No, happy to do that.
thank you.
Any other queries or questions? I think it's an amazing, lack of difference between budget and current, or the variation's minimal. But again, as Andrew suggested, it's a high level look at our position right now. Looking forward to the mid-term budget review.
Well, this will be part of it. So
And the potential variations and additions to that. But yes, okay, if there's no queries or questions, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the council workshop status report, 16.1, if I'm not mistaken. Sarah, mover and seconder, if we could please. I move. Councillor Sims and Councillor Metzger, thank you. That is the information on topics discussed at the 25th of November and 9 December 2024 council workshops be received. We have a mover and seconder. Any comments? Thank you. Nothing further to add?
Short mum.
Yeah, true, very. Thank you for that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. 16.2 is the delegates' report with a recommendation that the delegates' reports be received and noted. Mover and seconder, if we could, please. So moved. Thank you. Councillor Sims in fine form tonight. Councillor Brown as the seconder. Councillor Sims.
You've done a very good job. You're in the middle.
Straightforward. Councillor Brown, nothing to add? Around the table?
Yeah, how'd you go with the Palm
Ah.
meeting?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, interesting meeting we had with the Deputy Secretary of the Department for, I think it was Federal Department of Trade and Education, if I'm not mistaken. By way of background, that meeting was prompted, I guess, by the questions asked by Tasmanian senators in Senate estimates, particularly Senator Richard Colbeck and Senator Jackie Lambie. And the department committed to engaging with councils following that interrogation by those ministers. They quickly followed up and we were invited to meet in Hobart. Mrs. Phoebe, myself and the Deputy Mayor went to Hobart, met with them. They were very, very receptive and keen to understand what our suggestions were in terms of the process which is undertaken to assess properties. We were very strong on the advocacy from the point of view that we wanted or hoped that local government could be included in the assessment process rather than having to deal with the fallout from an assessment process that was somewhat flawed in our view. They came back with other suggestions and a lot of back and forwards, as you'd expect, but ultimately they've written to me in the last week with a suggestion for a pilot program to be undertaken with the 9 councils in the Cradle Coast region, to include those councils in an assessment process of some sort. Details yet to be determined, but really looking forward to that being put in place. And once that's formalised, and I expect that to happen early in the new year, then I'll be discussing that at Cradle Coast Authority and trying to ensure that council buy into whatever's suggested so that we respond in a timeframe that's appropriate and doesn't delay the approvals process, because it's so important those approvals are done in a satisfactory timeframe. But also they were very strong on their support they can provide should we have concerns in the future with regards individual properties. And they have capacity within Tasmania to respond to those concerns if we raise them with them within 24 hours of that notification being made. So that was a really significant positive for us. I'm happy to share, and if Sarah doesn't mind noting, I'll share the letter from the Deputy Secretary for your further consideration and information. But overall, it was a very positive meeting. I think there was really good outcomes, and it should really help us address nationally the concerns around the assessment process and the fallout from a process that was, as I said, flawed. They also mentioned the involvement we had with ALGA and the way we worked through ALGA and the representation of the government through that forum, which again I thought was helpful. But again, it's taken a lot of energy and work to get to this point, but I do believe the outcomes will be positive. I don't know, Jan, do you want to add anything from your perspective?
Not a lot to add. I think I agree that it was a really productive meeting and they were open to finding a better solution to ensure accommodation was fit for purpose. So I guess this pilot program will iron out any teething problems that we might have in relation to a process, but it certainly was a win, I guess, to even come away with something as positive as that. So hopefully it will work.
Along with the Deputy Secretary, there were 2 employees or key people in the PALM scheme who were very, very keen to collaborate with us and understand the concerns. Yeah, even the issue that we raised around a property having existing code violations, for example, and how can that be approved for accommodation, which I think Senator Lambie raised as well as anybody. How can a property with code violations for building and plumbing, etc., be approved for under the PALM scheme? Those sorts of questions need to be asked. And my view was she got fobbed off a little bit. But again, at the end of the day, we got face-to-face meeting and people who were genuinely interested in achieving an outcome that would help them as well as the workers and our council. So, yeah, a good outcome, but thank you for the question. And we will share that letter hopefully you'll find it as constructive as I did. Any other queries or questions in relation to the status report? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That motion is carried. We have 16.3, the council decision status report for November. Again, recommendation that be received. Mover and a seconder would be appreciated.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Metzger and Councillor Brown. Anything to add there, councillors?
I've got a couple of questions.
Please, Councillor Metzger.
The open space strategy, where are we at with that? I think I ask this every month.
Absolutely valid question. I'll ask the General Manager to comment if you would, please.
I'd have to follow up with the consultant, but we were expecting it to arrive in the inbox in the past couple of weeks and haven't seen it. So yeah, we'll just need to follow back with them.
So is that with them still? Because I thought did we get it and then it sent it back with our recommendations? Wow. Yeah, suggestions. Okay.
Yeah, so we did a review of the draft, which needed some fairly significant modification change.
Yeah.
Of which we then worked through with the consultant over a period of it was a couple of months, I think. And as I say, we were hoping to get something finalised, at least in draft, to come and share with councillors before we got to Christmas, but that hasn't eventuated. So I just need to get a catch up with them and talk about a new timeline. But
Yes.
We've put all of our feedback in, so it should just now be them finalising so we can share with councillors early in 25.
Really helpful if we can get from the consultants at least a time frame, if not the report, a time frame which they can commit to having back to us. So we know not to ask these questions. We know that when to expect the report would be really useful. And for that to be included on the report would be great. Report expected, whatever.
Well, I think we did have down that it was going to be Q2. So that has fortunately passed. But yeah, we'll follow up. Yeah, we'll follow up and get a clear timeline for early 25.
It's frustrating, that one.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I know it feels like it's been going forever.
It has been.
It has. Yeah.
Also, I just had a question on the subdivision of Lot 1 Percival Street's been put on hold or withdrawn, or is there any information about that?
I might ask Jan, are you best placed to comment on that?
John?
It has been withdrawn, but I think it was at a workshop where council was considering other alternatives for that site.
Yep, I must have missed that one. Also, the new dog zones. When do they actually come into effect? Like, when can you start walking your dog on that beach that you're not allowed to walk on at the moment?
Well, it'll be in the new year that we officially advertise the making of that policy in the newspaper, and then obviously we've got the signage associated signage. So once we get all of that lined up.
Yeah, okay. So pretty much once the signage is changed, then you know. Yeah, okay.
Working with parks in relation to a lot of that.
Yes.
Is that likely in the first quarter of 2025?
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Metzger. Anyone else have queries or questions? Councillor Martin?
Just around, consultants more broadly, if a consultancy fails to meet a deadline, is there any repercussion for council to be able to take to whether it's to be, remuneration or something along those lines that
Penalty clauses.
Yeah. Is there anything like that to hold the people that we're waiting on to account for a result?
General Manager.
Yes, there is. Generally, you would have your final instalment based on the report delivery, draft and finalisation. If you're referring to the one we just talked about, it's a situation where we don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
That's to suggest going forward we will have.
For that
in future.
Oh, no, we do. We
Okay.
set up milestone payments for, the good majority of our contracts are for, milestone payments through the work of the consultant. So, as I say, usually we would put in that there's a draft and you get an instalment and a final, you get your final instalment. So usually there'd be a bit up front, bit in the middle, and some at the end when consultants or contractors more generally are delivering the work that they're doing. So.
Okay, thank you. No questions around the table, councillors? Nods, shakes. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? Thank you. That motion is carried. 16.4, the Community Information Evening Notes. Recommendation that the notes of Latrobe Tarleton Community Information Evening held on the 21st of November be received. A mover and a seconder would be appreciated. Councillor Metzger and Councillor Brown, thank you. Councillor Metzger.
Nothing to add. It's pretty straightforward. Disappointing attendance, but including us councillors.
I agree.
A lot of references to the General Manager and comments attributed to you. But yeah, some positive comments from those three people who did attend on a number of issues too. Would you like to reflect on the meeting at all? Nothing?
It was a lovely, intimate affair.
Yes.
And very positive. I guess one of the questions talked about the CBD enforcement around people and scooters and mobility and all the bits and pieces that go up and down the CBD area. But more generally, it was just a really positive reflection on those community members and how they see what is being played out in the community. So it was, and we just had a very informal presentation chat.
I might just ask if I could, given you raised the topic, Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind commenting on the meeting we had with the acting inspector and acting sergeant in relation to the use of scooters or electric mobility aids in Gilbert Street and the concerns that have been raised by a number of people, not only at that meeting but across the wider community.
Yeah, we were hopeful they'd be able to provide clarity at that meeting. That wasn't the case, so they have gone away to have a look at some documentation that we shared, and also from their perspective in terms of being able to manage that on our behalf. Obviously, they're challenged in terms of their resourcing and what their priorities are across the northwest region. So, ensuring that our signage is correct and appropriate and can be used if need be. But the first thing is to get that signage up to the latest standard to help educate people, not only to better use those facilities, but also, if the need be, to issue some sort of a notification to change their behaviour.
Yeah, and we've referred to a neighbouring council as being an example of the type of signage that we should have. But when that was checked, that theirs was basically the same as ours. So what we're trying to endeavour to do is to get signage that, as Jonathan said, provides an education for those who read it, but also is enforceable by either council staff or by the police, and have that consistent right across the region. So all councils adopt the same signage, which makes it then again more consistent and something we can all enforce. So the sad coincidence around that meeting was that evening there was an incident, I believe, in the main street where a young person was knocked over by a device and sustained a broken arm or two, I believe, possibly. So that was really unfortunate, but we're doing what we can in that space, but it's so difficult given the proliferation and the type of those electric scooters and vehicles, for want of a better term. So a continuing piece, but it's interesting, it was raised at the Tarleton Latrobe community event. Yeah.
Can I also ask, is that something that would be driven through the Cradle Coast Authority? Is that where that directive needs to come from?
The intent, my intent, not shared with Jonathan to be fair, was that once we get the advice from the police about the signage and the option to enforce, so that they can not only enforce but they can also use the signage if there is an incident and relate to the fact that there was signage there that was appropriate and you were, the person was, the offender was in breach of that signage and whatever. So we're trying to get that feedback from the police as soon as possible. As Jonathan said, we referred them to some very recent information from State Growth, which only arrived, I think, a day or two before our meeting. And they weren't aware of that. So ideally, the acting inspector will get back to us very shortly, and we expect that early in the new year. Also like to not only follow up with Cradle Coast to get that consistency, but also they offered to meet with us and come to a workshop as well. So again, we'll be looking to take up that opportunity, as we did previously with Inspector King. And I think Inspector Lefevre has been to a meeting previously. It's about time we had a workshop to include them. Very often add good value, and a chance for each of you to recognise who our current police inspector and acting sergeant are. So early in the new year, we'll make sure that happens. If Sarah would also make a note about that for me to follow up. Thanks, Sarah. The recommendation was that those minutes be received. There's no other discussion to be had. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you to the staff particularly, and councillors, I should say, who did attend that meeting. We move next on to item 17, which is the committees of council. And we have the Latrobe Council Audit Panel Committee meeting held on the 18th of November. You need a drink. Maybe not water. The recommendation is that the unconfirmed minutes of the Latrobe Council Audit Panel Committee meeting held on the 18th of November be received. Can we have a mover and a second to that effect, please? Councillor Martin and Councillor Metzger. Yes, the minutes are detailed, have been provided to councillors. Councillor Martin, did you want to add anything?
No, it's all
Recorded.
correct. It's very thorough.
Thank you. Councillor Metzger, anything?
Oh, look, I just want to mention about how the committee was very disappointed that we couldn't get our audited accounts and our AGM by the due date again, and through no fault of any of our staff, just due to just the commitments of the TO, I suppose. So I feel sorry for the staff too. It must be disheartening because they've worked their butts off to get it in on time, and
Despite that, we are in a similar position.
in the same situation.
Yeah. I might just ask the General Manager to reflect on what's happened, that transpired there, particularly your interaction with the Tasmanian Audit Office.
Yeah, I think Cam and Andrew will be able to give a more recent update around the audit, but I did go and visit and share that it wasn't a great outcome given the effort that had gone into getting them in on time this year, and we certainly had to take some heat for not submitting on time in the past. And I think we'd also acknowledge that it hasn't been a perfect scenario. We've been sort of responding to the TAO over recent weeks to tidy up some information, but I think it'd be nice if we could get adequate resourcing for the TAO to be able to get through these audits on time. And I think we're all experiencing it right across the state. There's challenges with local government and other bodies not getting audits completed in time. When I had a chat to the Auditor General, he did note that he was looking to explore different avenues to make sure that these things were done on time, and whether times could be extended. I think the challenge is that extending these times is going to put pressure on our team, particularly in small councils looking to start budgets, as we're experiencing this year with Andrew and team having to respond to audits or auditors' requests for additional information and clarity. So it'd be nice if we can come to a resourcing situation for the Tas Audit Office to be able to get these things done in the window that we've all been used to. But I think we're still a way off.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Martin, happy.
Just wanted to ask, who does the Auditor General report through to? Is that to Treasury or is that to local government minister?
Good question. I don't think it would be Treasury because there'd be an independence position.
My understanding is the minister.
Which one?
Local government.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my understanding. I get letters about our audit, whatnot, and I recollect, I hope accurately, that that's where they come from. But yeah, I'm happy to follow that one up.
If that matter could be flagged, which I'm sure they're aware of, but if it could be flagged on a formal basis that to the minister to say, you need to put some pressure on this to ensure that these guys get looked after in that, not under undue pressure in these different periods of the year?
I think it's from multiple angles. Like all of us, they're challenged to get skilled and experienced staff and retain them. So, yeah, look, I think they're in that battle just like all of us. But equally, this has been a challenge for several years now, and being able to understand how we can help them. And that was, largely the comment was, how do we do better on our side to make it easier on their side, and some of the systems and process pieces were, also shared. The appetite for them to allow us to do re-evaluations and close our capitalisation of assets earlier was suggested that they'd be open to those things to help be able to close out some things before we get to year end. So we'll explore those avenues as much as support them from a resourcing perspective.
Cameron, did you want to add anything to the comments from the GM?
So there's a significant body of work that Andrew is working with the team, Joshua and he at the moment racing towards the office's shutdown period. It's a significant shutdown period for Tasmania office. So if they're not finalising it, it pushes issue significantly to following top end of next year. So hopefully we find a bit further clarity around we expect the action.
Yeah, my understanding is also it's not a problem unique to the Latrobe and Kentish councils, that there are a number of outstanding audits still not completed across the state. My understanding is also the general managers have raised a concern, the state audit office, about that issue, but resources can't be had from just out of thin air. They face a similar problem to us in local government, but again, disappointing for those who are putting in so much work, and the point's well made. Okay, nothing else to add, anybody? Nope. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move on to the Kentish and Latrobe Council's Joint Audit Panel Committee meeting minutes at 17.2. That meeting was held on the 18th of November. And the recommendation that the minutes be received. Move and second if we could. The dynamic duo, Councillor Metzger this time, and seconded by Councillor Martin. Councillor.
I attended this meeting as a proxy. I don't attend these very often, but it was, as Jackie mentioned, very thorough. But we have a new chair, and he was sort of just getting into the swing of things. But it was good.
Good. Councillor Martin, nothing? Anyone around the table? Okay, if not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. 17.3 is the minutes from the Ports Road Advisory Committee meeting held on the 7th of November. Multiple recommendations. That is that the unconfirmed minutes of the Ports Road Advisory Committee meeting held on the 7th of November be received and the following recommendation be endorsed. That is, that it be recommended to Council that a welcome sign be considered as part of the 2025-26 budget development and installation for the entry to Port Sorell. I'm not sure if that would coincide with the roundabout project, Jonathan, but again, a consideration for our next budget. It seems odd that would require a budget allocation. Must be a significant sign up you're suggesting.
I don't think anyone's actually put a design together.
So we'll get a recommendation on that, I expect. So, if everyone's happy with those, we'll have a mover and a second in relation to that item, please. Councillor Metzger and Councillor Martin. Thank you both. Any further discussion required on those minutes and or recommendations?
I just had a question about the entrance signage. Who's that? Who am I talking to?
Something on that one.
Who's that?
Cameron has offered to be the lamb to the slaughter.
There was a few recommendations of what should be included. Will that signage come to council as well, or is it just going to be done through PSAT?
Yes, I assume.
So there's a subcommittee looking
Yeah,
at it.
the content was going to be worked through with PSAC. Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
I'm assuming,
My comments then until
Yeah, we can feed it
it
in.
comes through.
also assuming, depending on location, there'll have to be some conversations had with state growth, given Portsmouth Main Road, if it's located there. So,
Certainly update to the existing sign or
I
the.
think so. I think it's updating the existing.
so
Yeah, so it's the
Which is-
updated visitor information bay that we.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the detail is about.
okay, gotcha. Okay, we'll look forward to that in 25. Thank you. Any other queries or questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? The motion is carried. 17.4 is the Portsmouth Caravan Park Committee meeting held on the 20th of November. Again, the minutes being received and the following recommendations be endorsed. A couple of recommendations, one in relation to the waiving of the waitlist fee, and a second recommendation that a subsequent report will be required for council to amend the fees and charges. Subsequent to endorsement, and action will be taken for officers to progress, whatever that includes. Mover and seconder, if we could. Thank you, Councillor Metzger.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Sims.
Even though it wasn't
Okay, queries or questions in relation to the minutes or the recommendations, starting with the mover, if we could.
Oh, just a comment. I was surprised that that fee deterred people from being.
Yeah.
It's like $100 is $100, but it was only a one-off fee. It was like a yearly fee, was it?
No.
To stay on there. I'm sure it was only just a one-off one.
That was my understanding, but I wasn't at that meeting. It's not to say I shouldn't have a clearer recollection, but Cameron?
Essentially, had a business practice where we had a list of people that were available, and by bringing in the fee, basically they all said, "No, we're not going to pay that," and then we were going to the effort of advertising and trying to find people when we actually knew a whole bunch of people who were interested.
Yeah.
So the fee is one-off or annual?
Don't know.
I believe it's one-off, but again, we'll follow up on that and provide.
Empty that list instantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, again, if you wouldn't mind making a note on that. And I'll provide an email with a number of follow-up points from tonight's meeting. Anything else?
I just noticed that the building facilities coordinator's got quite a busy job with the action item. There's quite a list that he's got to follow up. He'll be very busy.
Thought that too. Ben's did a whole lot of work.
Yeah, we've been
I drove past there last night when I went to Carol's and I saw the sign looks fantastic, by the way, on the end of the building, as does the work that's been done by Michael and Jonathan's teams. There's the footpaths and the entranceway. The whole thing it's really a good presentation for a caravan park. It's a great entrance now. So
I think the caretakers themselves are showing a lot of pride in the park, and
it's obvious on the sites as well.
yeah.
So very positive, very positive. Having said that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. That's 17.4, no urgent business. Next item on the agenda, I believe, is the closed meeting agenda item, and that is that the following items be discussed in closed session. Those items are listed there for your consideration and information. We have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Martin and Councillor Wicks, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Councillors, we will now have a 2-minute break if that's okay, and we'll then go on to the closed session of the meeting. I thank those online for attending. Likewise, Mr. Redgrave, thank you. And quick 2-minute break and we'll move through the closed session.